to present Paul Feig with our Precious Gem Award.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh my gosh. This is so wonderful. Thank you. What a beautiful clip reel. Did I do all that? This is so great. Truly, this means the world to me. Thank you for this and to Miami for coming out and just for all the support. I hope you like the movie and thank you. And now I think I'm bringing up Josh. Here he is. Exactly. I can introduce the man, the legend. Josh Harps. Here he is.
One legend in the house. Give it up one more time for Mr. Paul Feig, everybody. Come on.
That right there.
Yeah, Paul, congratulations. The Precious Gem Award winner, Paul Feig. Do you have an illustrious career of awards in your childhood? What was the first award you ever won as a kid?
I actually did a guitar recital. I was a terrible guitar player, but for some reason, I went to this competition with this classical song I practiced forever, and for some reason, that one moment, I did it perfectly and scored a 100 out of 100 and was never able to play it again.
Amazing.
Which I think sums up my entire career.
Let's get the guitar out again tonight for Paul. Congratulations. It's always good to see you. You guys are inside of my podcast. Thank you for coming out tonight in Miami. This is Happy Sad Confused with the one and only Mr. Paul Feig. You guys need us to switch? Are we good? Okay. Cameras, we're good? Okay, cool.
I was looking the wrong way.
So, Paul, this audience is one of the first audiences in the world, literally, to see Another Simple Favor.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about, it's kind of ironic to me, if you look at your filmography, you might have expected a lot of other sequels, perhaps, to some other films. This is a challenging one. The first film was a challenging one. Yeah. What was your attitude about sequels prior to making this one?
I'm not a giant fan of sequels or doing them because, there's been some great sequels, but I think the majority of sequels aren't as great as the first movie. And Hollywood always thinks, oh, if they like the first one, they're just going to want another one. And audiences kind of used to go for that. If you think about the 80s and 90s, we'd all be like, okay, we'll go see the sequel. And I think people got burned by a lot of sequels over the years. And so we found kind of in our research of the internet and just audiences, because I'm always just trying to figure out how do I, make an audience happy and give them what they want while still doing something that I'm happy with too. And the big question was always, why? Why do I need to see this? And it's a hard question to ask because sequels are difficult. The reason you love a movie the first time is because you're discovering the characters for the first time. You're being given a lead character who has a problem in their life or something they need to solve, and the movie solves whatever happens in the movie, solves it for them. So your lead character always comes out sort of better at the end, unless it's a crazy horror movie or whatever. And so to then do a sequel of like, oh, I love that, I want to see that character, do you take them back to then they have another problem, and are you like, oh, didn't we solve your problem before? Like, what's wrong with you? Can't you pull it together? So it's hard. So you have to figure out, is there something new we can bring to it that is taking what people liked from the first one and then giving them something completely different while still paying off what they loved about the first one. And it's a really tough tightrope to walk. And for me, I just sometimes just don't. I'm like, I'd rather just step away from something that worked and not try to screw it up with a sequel.
As folks can now tell from seeing this, this is kind of like on steroids. This is like A Simple Favor, and you went you went for it, and I love that about this film, because yes, we know and love the characters, but throwing them into this total other world really gives it an energy and a vitality that, the film had, but it's a totally different animal this time around.
Yeah, the critics love it when you go crazy in the third act. All my movies get slammed for like, it goes nuts in the third act. Well, but I like a big ending, and these movies are kind of, they're that was what was fun about the first one was it's a really grounded story. We treat it grounded, but it's got a crazy core to it. And, I love Hitchcock movies, because what I love about the Hitchcock movies, not that they went bananas at the end like we do, but the characters, there's so many funny characters in Hitchcock movies. His thrillers they're thrilling and they're exciting, but they're also, you laugh because there's funny things happening, like extreme characters in it. And I felt like over the years, thrillers had gotten you have to be very serious, and all that. And it's like, I don't know, I think as long as we're not going like thumbing our nose at the genre and screwing the audience over by pulling the rug and going, oh, you like that? Well, guess what? We're going to subvert that in a way that is not satisfying. You know, the worst thing that can happen when you're screening a movie for an audience, or when an audience is watching a movie, is when they go like, oh, wait, no, wait, come on. Why would that happen? Because it means you set up a set of rules in the first half of the movie that then you subvert. You pull the rug out. It happens in a lot of comedies. Go like, oh, well, this would be really funny. But like, well, that's funny, but now you completely like subverted what everybody thought was the rule.
Right. Violated your own rules that you've established.
Yeah. So you have to stay consistent with you can set up the craziest language, the craziest set of rules you want. I always point to the movie Moulin Rouge, because that movie, the first 10 minutes is nutty.
Yeah.
You know, and I know a lot of people when it first came out, before I saw it, people were like, oh, I left after the first 10 minutes. It's too crazy. But what that did is it sets you up, and you go like, okay, that's the world I'm in.
Right.
And then it works. So I'm just a big fan of what we call the skeleton key at the beginning of the movie of like, here's the rules, now we're going to stick to them.
I also love, I mean, yeah, you just alluded to this, like arguably my favorite movie of all time is North by Northwest. And that is one of the great kind of adventure, mystery, thriller, and it is comedic.
It's funny.
It's a fun movie, and that's what you've made. And I know you pride yourself on being, above all else, a filmmaker for audiences. Like you trust and want to please an audience. And because I often have conversations with filmmakers about like, you want to trust your gut, but there has to be that balance, I would imagine, of trusting your gut and then listening to the audience.
You can only trust your gut so far, because your gut tells you what you like, you know, and that's why I'm very, very addicted to test screenings. And a lot of filmmakers don't like them, because basically, you know, what I do, the DGA gives me, I'm contractually given 10 weeks where nobody interferes with me. The producers, the studio, everybody leaves me alone, and I huddle up for 10 weeks and do my cut of the movie. Well, after about 4 or 5 weeks, I've done what I think is the first cut of the movie that I'm like, I think this works, and then I want to test that. So we do a test audience, not a friends and family. Those are completely worthless, because all your friends and family are really nice to you. Oh, it was great. I loved it. But you get 300 people in a room who don't know you or recruited off the street. They're going to be brutal. But at the same time, you go like, okay, I thought that was going to be great. They didn't laugh, or they didn't like that. I think I have to change that. And look, if there's something I really love and I think, well, maybe it's just a weird audience, I'll test it twice. And if it doesn't work, you got to take it out, because I'm a commercial filmmaker. I'm making movies for studios. They're giving a lot of money to this budget, and I got to pay it off. But I also want people to have a good time. I don't want the worst thing you can do is like, well, I loved it and screw them, they didn't get it. It's like, well, then just make movies for yourself and show them in your house.
Let's talk about your amazing cast. Let's start with Anna Kendrick, who, I mean, there are few actors I would imagine you can trust to kind of like, play drunk, play on someone on sodium pentothal. But like, Anna is so finely calibrated as a comedic actor that you're in safe hands with her. I don't know, what's her superpower for you as an actor to work with?
Well, first of all, nobody plays drunk funnier than Anna Kendrick. She kills me every time she does it. No, Anna's is great because she's a great actor, and because of that, she can take the comedy and make it come out of herself in a real way. What comedy falls apart is when you go, oh, that actor is making fun of that character. That actor doesn't like that character, or just going, oh, look how crazy I am. Because then is the difference between if you know somebody who's really like a kind of a crazy personality, but you kind of love them because that's them. Versus sometimes I've gone out, in the comedy world, like somebody like, oh, this is my friend, he's really crazy. And you see somebody like, I'm crazy, like trying to be funny. And it's like, I don't buy what you're doing. But if you can make what like Anna does, make it come from your soul in a believable place, but you are an extreme oddball character, then the audience will follow you anywhere.
And then we have Blake Lively, who, I mean, I'm not going to ruin this on the podcast for what she does in this film, but we see Blake in situations we've never seen her in before,
yes,
or much less any other actor before.
Yeah, there you go.
But I mean, I guess, what did you learn from working with Blake the first time around? I mean, she seems like, time traveled out of old Hollywood. You get to work with this like amazing movie star, yeah, but she obviously has the comedic and dramatic chops. What did you learn from the first time that you applied to the experience this time?
Well, Blake is brilliant. I mean, truly, her, look, a movie is a collaboration. That's what we do. I mean, the myth that sort of like the director comes in and gives a script and everybody just says it word for word is a myth. I mean, there are filmmakers I know who do that, and sometimes it's great, but at most times I go like, boy, that feels really written. That feels very rehearsed. That feels, it doesn't feel in the moment to me. And so I'm very collaborative with my whole cast. And first of all, I invite all my actors to have a big say in their wardrobe, because I was an actor for years, and your wardrobe affects how you play the character. I mean, we are how we dress. That's our personalities come through in that. And so I want them to be, in tune with that. And then Melissa McCarthy and I used to do that all the time. Everybody I work with. And so Blake's got such great ideas about her wardrobe and stuff. And then she works with Renee Kalfas, my amazing costume designer who did this movie, has done all my movies since The First Simple Favor. And just the ideas, what I love is when people give you an idea, and this happened with so many people I've worked with, where you're like, well, that's weird. And then you're like, wait, but if we can make that work, it's going to be great, because they see something that we're not, there's nothing worse than turning down an idea because you didn't have it in your head first, versus getting past the thing of like, that wasn't my idea, but if I think about it, that's actually really cool. And my whole thing in my career is I'm tired of my voice, and it's why I kind of don't even like write from scratch a lot of my scripts anymore, because I know my voice, I know where I'm going to go, versus new writers come in and they have new ideas. And I love working with people who haven't even, who are just starting out.
Yeah.
They discover somebody, because they don't know the rules. You got to know the rules, but if they don't know the rules and they're coming at you with something fresh and a fresh voice, then we can take it, we can make it commercial and do the things we need to do with it. But that's great. That's what so many actors bring to the what they do.
Well, and that only comes with experience and the insecurity of a young director who feels like I have to put my stamp on every single thing so everybody knows it's me.
Yeah.
And you, and we'll get to kind of like the body of work, and it was seen in that clip reel, but I imagine working on something like The Office, for instance, where so many of the actors are writer actors and everybody is contributing, must have been kind of maybe a mind shift for you as a creative.
Oh, totally. Because Freaks and Geeks was pretty controlled. Because we were on a tight schedule, and I was very mercurial with the writing on that and everything. And the cast was great, and it just, that's kind of how it worked. But it was once I got to doing Arrested Development and then The Office and all these things where we could loosen it up, and you're working with such brilliant improvisers on that you start to go like, oh, this is a collaboration. This has to be a collaboration. All the things, I went to USC Film School, and it was all, like, oh, actors are, like everybody liked to, crap on actors and stuff, because it's all like, oh, they always love to tell this story about Hitchcock, when there was a big wide shot and there's an actor who had to come running in this big wide shot up to the camera. And the actor's like, what's my motivation? Hitchcock said, I'll tell you when you get here. So, which everybody thought was funny, but I was kind of like, well, actually, that's wrong, because there's a million different ways to run. Like, is the guy in a panic? Is he scared? Is he this and that? So it's like I have such love of actors because they bring so much to it. In my kind of mantra as a director is you have to have the confidence to have no confidence. You have to be able to go, I know what I'm doing, but maybe they're right. So let's try what they want, and I'll do what I want. And that's a great thing about film. Let's do your version. Let's do my version. Let's do the other person's version. Let's get everything in between. And then I've got all that ammo when I go into the editing room.
All right, so I'm going to ask you one spoilery conversation point that I'm going to run after the film, because I can't resist. Because you guys have seen this movie. It's bananas. It's amazing. When Blake read what she was going to be doing with herself, what was her reaction? What was the discussion? What was it like on set? Tell me as much as you can.
Well, when I first told her about it, she was like, oh, man, what, really? I was like, no, go with me on this. I swear. No, look, she is a brave performer. She's like, I want to do this. We had versions of it in the first one because she plays her sister in that, but it was just kind of took it to the next level. It all comes from, honestly, I take the blame for it, because it came from, I was an only child, and I was really awkward as a kid, and I was afraid to date, ask girls out and all this stuff. And so I would always go like, oh, if only I could like date myself, like it would be so great. I know everything that makes me happy and all this stuff. Like, it would be so good. And that was kind of when we were working on the whole idea of Charity and what her mindset is. It was like, yeah, Charity's been alone her whole time. She knows she has a sister, and it's like, what could be? So that's where that comes from. So God bless you, Blake, for going along for the ride.
I do feel like when her eyes go wide, that's not acting. That's just in the moment.
All in a day's work.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a This Is Your Life, Paul Feig, because we have you here and you've done an amazing amount of exceptional work. You alluded to what you were like as a kid, but can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean, only child. Did you feel like, I don't know, were you a performer as a kid? Did you have a big personality?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be an actor. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I had this mind-bending moment when I got cast as the lead elf in the school play. And if you've read one of my books, this is in the book, so I apologize. Where basically we had to be elves, and they said, "Oh, the parents have to make elf costumes for your kids." So my father owned an army surplus store, and so he was like, "Well, let's put together a elf costume." And my father was never happy. He was like, "God damn it, we got to do an elf costume for you. Who has to do that?" So he took me in and got these olive drab green boxer shorts from the army, and this T-shirt, suspenders and stuff. And then he got these big wool green socks for my feet. And then he goes, "Oh," so he took foam and he put the foam in the front. So my feet were like this long in a sock with this big curly thing. So we think we look good. We go to the recital or the play. Every kid looks like they've walked out of Western costume. I mean, these parents made the most gorgeous elf costumes ever. And I'm like this low rent elf. So I walk out to get my big entrance after all the elves are out there. I walk out and the audience goes crazy, laughing at me, granted, but and all I heard was like, "Oh my God, look what just happened from an audience. I must have this for the rest of my life."
And you got into, I mean, stand-up comedy was something you pursued pretty early on, like as 15 years old?
15 years old, yeah.
What's the act of a 15-year-old doing stand-up?
It's not very good, I'll tell you that. It's a lot of stolen jokes from Johnny Carson back in the day, and I had to take my parents to the comedy club. It was a place called the Delta Lady, which was right downtown Detroit, like a pretty funky area. And it was a biker bar that was it was right at the beginning of the comedy club thing. And Tim Allen was one of the regulars there. And, there was famous people who were starting out. And yeah, they brought me in. I think they just thought it was funny that a 15-year-old wanted to get up on stage. And so I got up and told these jokes. And I thought I was getting laughs. If you listen to the tape now, which I still have somewhere, they're just clearly laughing at me. But again, I thought I killed. My parents took me to Shakey's Pizza after the first show, and I was just like, I did it. So, yeah.
So, I mean, the Cliff Notes version is you moved to L.A., you're doing stand-up, you're getting into acting, you're a tour guide at Universal Studios, I think, at one point. Yeah. So when does acting kind of take off or become consistent for you? Is that relatively early on, or are there years of kind of figuring it out?
Well, it was kind of, I did a lot of theater in Michigan before I moved out to L.A. at the age of 17, and then did the tour guide thing. And then, I mean, I kind of got swept up into wanting to go to film school because 1981, when I was a tour guide, I got taken to the very first opening morning showing of Raiders of the Lost Ark at the Man Chinese Theater, packed house. And I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea. That was pre-internet, so if you didn't happen to see a trailer, then you didn't know. And the place went crazy. And I remember just going oh my God, you can do that to an audience. But I was still kind of thinking as an actor, but at the same time, I kind of had this dream of I'm going to write, direct, and star in my own stuff. So went to USC Film School, got out, and kind of worked as a scriptwriter for a producer named Michael Phillips, who produced The Sting and Close Encounters, all that. And then I went into stand-up, and I did stand-up for about 4 or 5 years, and then kind of burned out on it a little bit because I realized the goal for a stand-up back then was to just be on the road as an opener, or as a headliner all the time, and I didn't like that. So pivoted into acting, and then I had 15 years. I mean, first TV series I was a regular on was Sabrina. No, it was not that. It was Dirty Dancing, the TV series. You didn't know they did that, did you? No, neither did anybody else.
That was the problem. Yeah.
Never watched it, exactly.
But Sabrina that's a real successful show. You're a regular on it.
Yeah, that was after 4 other failed TV series. So that was the end of a 14-year run of kind of getting to be the 6th lead on a sitcom and going, this is my big break, and then the telling thing was always, they're like, okay, we're going to take, there's like the day when they're going to take all the publicity photos. So you're all excited and you're there, the rest of the cast, they go like, all right, everybody get in. So you got the big group photo. We're like, hey. And then they're like, all right, can you guys in the end peel off? And you're like, oh no. And then they spend hours shooting the 3 leads and you're like, I might as well not be on the show. And I had an actor's ego. I was like, I wanted to be in the spotlight. I wanted to be important on the set and to the project, and it just never happened. And even with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which finally was after 4 other failed series, took off. And that was the thing, like, finally I'm on a show I'm going to be taken care of for 7-8 years. The show's going to run forever. And they called me up after the end of the first season, like, we're not going to bring you back to the show. We don't know how to write for your character. It's like, I do. I could write for it.
Well, this might be the exact wrong call, but we're going to show a clip from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I'm sorry, Paul. That's the price for getting an award. I embarrassed you.
Turn that light up higher.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So a grainy YouTube, but this is Sabrina the Teenage Witch starring the one and only Paul Feig. Let's take a look.
I'm very scared. Oh, wow. The acting world really lost out when I stopped acting.
Where is the Mr. Poole feature film spinoff? It's time.
Thank you. Exactly. I know. It's coming. It's coming like when my hair turns brown again.
So, again, we can't cover everything, but coming out of that, you make a film, which I know doesn't necessarily pan out in the way that you wanted it to.
Right.
But the good news is that experience, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of gives birth to Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, I made, briefly, I made a $30,000 film that I starred in, shot in a field. It was I wrote and directed and starred in it. It was 4 people who meet in a field. They don't know why they're there, and turns out they all think that a UFO is going to come and take them away because they hate their lives. So it was a very small film. Yeah, and I couldn't sell it anywhere. I couldn't get it at any festivals, except I finally got into this kind of traveling road festival where you take it around these small colleges and show it. And it was when I was out on the road doing that I decided I was going to write the pilot for Freaks and Geeks.
So, look, I'm sure this audience has seen Freaks and Geeks. It's one of the greatest TV shows, arguably, in the history of television. I mean, it's a seminal work, and it's so personal to you. I guess briefly, let's just talk about the cast, for instance. That cast is insane.
Whatever happened to them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you have to fight for any of them in particular? I mean, were they all kind of easy to get the network to approve, from Seth to James Franco?
Yeah, they actually were. I mean, that was the thing when Judd and I took the pilot into NBC to see if they would buy it. I remember, they were interested in it. We were going to have a meeting to talk about it. I made this big speech to Judd, like, they're not going to make me cast a bunch of, beautiful models in this thing. I want real kids, blah, blah, blah. And so I start that speech at NBC, and they go like, oh, no, we agree. Oh, okay. So they kind of really let us cast the way we want to. And we saw every kid in town, and there's so many talented kids out there, but you just knew when each one of them came in, you're just like, oh my gosh, you just couldn't believe how talented they were. We found Seth Rogen up in Vancouver in an open casting call. He was one of 3 kids who had an agent, so he kind of got brought in first. And the minute he started reading, Judd and I just looked at each other like, oh my God, this guy is absolute gold.
Like you had done stand up at 16 years old. He was a prodigy.
Totally, yeah, he was. I mean, he's the most confident 16-year-old I've ever met in my life.
I mean, it must be hard to pinpoint this, but what are you proudest of the legacy of that show? I mean, it's talked about to this day. It's sure the cast, but it just as personal as you, I feel like everybody connects still to this day.
I think what I am most proud of is so many either parents or people who were kids at the time or have seen it over the intervening years said, it really helped me get through high school. And that was kind of my motivation to do it in the first place, because I had such a crazy time in high school, and I was so terrified of going in, and I had weird bullies, and you're like, pre-internet, you're like, is it just me? Am I the weirdo? And just to go let's do something in the most fun but real way we can, to go look, it's going to be terrible, but you're going to get through it, and you're going to laugh about it when it's over. So I like that carries on.
To pay penance for showing that earlier clip, I'm going to show a clip from Freaks and Geeks. So hopefully that gets me back in your good stead.
I'm not in it.
Not in this one, but your handiwork is all over it. Freaks and Geeks.
My goodness. Don't the weirs look nice today?
Thank you. See you, Sam.
What did you just come from church?
How'd things go with your dad? Was he pissed?
No, not at all. He was really happy that I stole his car and smashed it.
Hey, if it makes you feel any better, the party got moved till tonight.
You know what, Daniel? It doesn't make me feel any better because now I'm grounded, so I can't go to any of your stupid parties ever.
Why don't you just sneak out?
Why don't you just go to hell?
Oh, God, Lindsay.
Oh, shut up, Kim. I'm sick of you guys getting me in trouble all the time. I'm sick of you guys, period.
Maybe you're just on your period.
Yeah, Daniel. That's exactly it. I'm on my period. You figured it out.
It was a joke.
Oh, sorry. It's hard to pick up on the subtlety of your wit.
What's up your butt, princess?
You are, Daniel. I'm tired of you using me. And you're the most selfish people I've ever met in my life. Look, I know you don't care about being smart or going to school or anything else, but just because your lives are such lost causes, don't keep assuming that mine is.
I've not seen that in a long time.
Holds up, definitely. So, I mean, I know you're asked this all the time. I probably asked you this 6 times, but in the age of every single thing being rebooted, sequelized, etc., nothing for Freaks and Geeks. And is that something that you and Judd have had to protect actively? Has that come up as a conversation?
Oh, it comes up all the time. Yeah, people wanted it forever. I'm a fan of James Brown, who said, "Hit it and quit it." And we had 18 episodes that I think are kind of great. And look, I definitely had a plan for a second season, but that's they're all grown up now, and I'm not going to do a modern day one because I couldn't write that. What do I have to say? This was good because it was all the things that were going on for me when I was in school. And what I like about it is we made it in 1999, 2000. It takes place in 1980. I really like doing things that are in the past because you have a very set bunch of cultural rules, icons, things like that. Because what I hate about making, movies sometimes these days is it's always like, well, we got to get a hot new song in there. And it's like, how many times like, by the time the movie comes out, it was like, oh, that song sucks. Or like, oh, yeah, that was played out, or it never hit. And so we could cherry pick the best of not only the culture and the music, but also sort of what we were going through, what adolescents go through back then. And that was always the thing, like, let's not get too hung up on cultural references because it's all about the feelings that you have when you're an adolescent, which are probably the same 200 years ago because our emotions are the same. It's just the trappings around us are different. And so, that's why I think it kind of holds up, is we just stuck to that stuff.
And there's something to be said for, like, quitting while you're ahead. I mean, that one season is frozen forever, and we will always wonder all those questions.
Yeah, well, because so many people go like, "Oh, I just wish I knew how it ended." I'm like, the only show that ever had a perfect ending was 6 Feet Under, because the last episode they killed everybody. You saw how everybody died, So you're kind of like, okay, yes, once I know how everybody dies, then the story is over. But characters go on, their lives change, and all that, and sometimes. Like, I don't want to know what happened to some of the people I went to school with because I like them because they weren't my friends necessarily, just people kind of, we're all background extras in other people's movies.
Right.
And and some people take great joy in going to their, class reunion and seeing who lost their hair and who got overweight. And like, I don't want to know that. I just want to remember them the way that they were. And if somebody reaches out and says hi, then that's great. But
so there's a good decade between then and Bridesmaids, and a lot happens in that decade for you. A little bit of movie director jail, fair to say.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that. There's a lot of experience making television, the aforementioned Arrested Development, The Office, etc. Like, if I was talking to you back in like 2000, 2010, I mean, you're making really good work. You're making great television, but were you satisfied creatively?
I mean, you hate to say no because I was working on some of the best shows on TV. I mean, throw Nurse Jackie and 30 Rock and all those things into there. But it was not satisfying just because I knew I wanted to make movies. That's all I ever wanted to do. And I wanted to tell, not necessarily my own stories, but I wanted to tell my story, the stories I like, the way I wanted to tell them. And, when you work in TV, and I was very lucky having Creative Freaks and Geeks, I got a lot of leeway from the people that I worked with because they knew me as a writer also. But at the same time, I'm in service of them because when I had directors on my show, they were in service of me, and the vision that Judd and I had for the show. So, you come in with an idea, and then if they don't want it, you go, sure, what do you want? And I just wanted to be back making movies. And also, I just love putting stuff on the big screen. It just is so much fun. So 2009, I was kind of getting a little, I would always kind of say to my wife, I think I'm just kind of running down the clock. It's great. It's great. We can have this nice life, But the low point came when I was directing a series of internet commercials for Macy's. And it did with, one was with Martha Stewart, who was really cool and stuff. But then I did one with Donald Trump. And it was just a weird experience. And I remember just going back to the hotel and going like, what am I doing? And that was right around when Judd called, or my agents got a call that Bridesmaids was going to be alive again. Judd had brought it to me like about 3 years prior. I went to a table read of it, and the script was very different. Still, it was the same idea, but very different. But I just saw these 6 funny women, not even the women who were in the movie, by the way, reading. And I was like, I want to do that because look at all these great roles for these women. And then it just kind of sat there, and I was busy with other stuff. And then it looked like it was dead. So right around that 2010, when I was doing the Macy's stuff, I got a call from the agent saying like, it's alive again. And then Judd reached out and, and said, you want to do this? Changed everything.
And ever since then, like if you've certainly genre hopped, but if there is a consistency among your films, it is showcasing women front and center. And I mean, it still sounds insane to say, but at the time, Bridesmaids was this weird anomaly. Like, wait, is there a market for this? Can just like an ensemble of women actually lead a film like this? Was that an active conversation behind the scenes that there was doubt in that?
Well, I mean, it was considered a big swing. And, Judd's a good producer. He kind of kept that away from me. But we were, the studio was great. I mean, Donna Langley, the whole gang, they were really into it. It was just that the business around it of Hollywood was in a sort of let's wait and see what happens. Because I had a lot of female writer friends who were kind of inspired that we were doing that. So they were taking out their pitches for female-led movies. And they were across the board hearing from execs, we just have to wait and see how Bridesmaids does, which is like, that's really...
No pressure also.
Yeah, no pressure. And also, the movie starring guys, people are like, well, if The Hangover doesn't work, we're not going to make movies with men anymore, So it was kind of, it was terrifying. And then, I mean, we were really projected to not do well. I mean, up to the day of the release, they told me if the movie doesn't make $20 million at least opening weekend, it's a failure. And so the first projections came in the morning of, because they did a midnight screening the night before, that it was going to come in at 13. And so I just walking around the house like Dead Man Walking, like, well, not this, because I had 2 other movies that had bombed, and this was my last strike, basically. And but just during the course of the day, we started getting calls like, hey, well, it's going to be 15. It actually looks like 17. And then Melissa McCarthy and her husband Ben were over at our house having dinner, kind of licking our wounds. And then this text started coming in 20, 21, 22, 23. And I was like, get in the car. We're going to the ArcLight Cinema, which was like the big cinema back then in L.A. We walk in the back and the place is just packed and rocking. And we're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. An undeniable theater experience. And here's a portion of one of the iconic scenes that I'm sure is embedded in all of our brains. But here's a reminder.
I apologize.
No, the genius that is Bridesmaids. Let's take a look.
Lillian, honey?
Beautiful lady. Breathtaking.
Holy shit, you look amazing.
I mean, that's a
that
dress.
dress is so pretty, it makes my stomach hurt.
Lillian, I don't know what to say. You look... Megan, are you okay? Oh.
I think my dress was probably just tight.
Oh my God. You got food poisoning from that restaurant, didn't you?
No, I had the same thing that she had, and I feel fine.
Oh my, okay.
Oh no.
What is happening? Nothing's happening. Oh my God.
You know, I don't really care which dress we get. It doesn't matter to me. I just need to get off this white carpet.
No, okay. No, not the bathroom. Everybody go outside. I'm serious. There's a bathroom across the street.
Everybody has the flu.
Oh my. Nominated for 2 Academy Awards.
I mean, you didn't know Melissa. Nobody really knew Melissa. Maybe in some comedy circles they knew her.
Gilmore Girls fans.
That's true.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
You're absolutely true. But that must have been just thrilling to see someone that was just fearless as a performer
Oh yeah.
on set.
Yeah, I mean that's why we ended up doing 4 movies altogether. Yeah, you kind of in comedy you look for somebody who has the exact same sense of humor as you do, and it's really hard to find. We all of us have a very different sense of humor, I guarantee it. And so when you find somebody who wants to play by the same kind of rules that you do, as far as like we don't want to take the character too far, but we can push it this far, but we can't take it over the top. This stuff. It's just kind of fantastic. And so we really, I didn't know who she was before that. She came in for an audition because Annie Mumolo and Kristen knew her from Groundlings. And it was just like, who is this person who's unbelievably hilarious and different and could bring a weirdness to the character, but like a completely believable weirdness. I mean, nobody read the part like her in all the auditions we did.
Also, one of the joys, I mean, we keep talking about casting is like, you cast someone like Melissa McCarthy, you're going to get something exceptional. But what I love also, you've done this repeatedly in your career, whether it's with Rose, who we saw in that, and she's amazing in Spy as well, Statham, Hemsworth. I mean, is that just like, is that a gut instinct that someone, if they've got the dramatic chops, they're going to be able to nail humor?
I have to meet them. That's the thing. I like to take meetings or get to know people. Because then I get to see who they really are. Statham was because my wife and I are enormous Statham fans, seen everything he ever did, and is a director. And like once my movies were kind of starting to be successful, it's easier to go like, hey, I'd like to meet so and so. Well, they come to my office, please. And Jason, we set up a meeting and he came in. And I thought he was so delightful. And I go like, there's something funny about him. Also, in fairness, if you've seen the Crank movies, you can't watch those movies and not go like, that guy does not know what's funny. Those movies are nuts.
Like Wile E. Coyote cartoons basically brought to life. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, he's gonna be great. But like with Hemsworth, I'm a big fan of Hemsworth's, but I said, when he was I'd heard through my agent that he was interested in possibly being a Ghostbuster. I said, can I have lunch with him? And just talking to him, I'm like, oh my God, you're really funny. Do your Australian accent. I don't want you to put an American accent. And then like for Last Christmas, Michelle Yeoh, when we were doing the first Simple Favor, Henry Golding had just done Crazy Rich Asians, and Michelle was in Toronto with us where we were shooting, doing Star Trek. And one day he's like, hey, do you want to have dinner with Michelle Yeoh? And I'm like, I didn't know she existed. I mean, I was such a fan of hers from all the Hong Kong movies, but you kind of don't think that a person really breathes and walks this earth like her. And the minute I met her, she was hilarious, and we just had the best time. So I'm like, I got to get you in a comedy. I got to put you in a comedy. So that's kind of the fun way to do it. Because then also you're playing with the expectations of an audience who goes like, oh, we know exactly what that person does. Like if I didn't meet Michelle Yeoh, I go like, she's the most serious, badass actress. That's so cool. I would never have told you in a million years she's really funny. Same with Emilia Clarke. She's Khaleesi, and she's so serious, and her face didn't even move. And then she comes in and she's goofy and all this stuff. So yeah, it's a joy to be able to bring that side, an unknown side of an actor to the audience.
10th anniversary of Spy this year. I always bring it up. I'm obsessed with that movie. I love that movie. And I know you've said before it's the one movie you'd actually kind of seriously consider now, besides this one, obviously, doing a sequel.
Yeah.
Have you ever come remotely close? Is there any hope for folks like me?
Well, yeah, I mean, you never say never. I mean, I definitely know what the story would be. There's just moments you go like, did we wait too long? Or sometimes if you do it too soon, I don't know. I mean, I'm so happy to get to do new things all the time. I mean, having done this and then now just finished production on The Housemaid, which is coming out at Christmas, which was so much fun. doing with Sydney Sweeney and then Amanda Seyfried and Brandon Sklenar. And it was I don't know. I like the idea of revisiting stuff, but at the same time, it's really fun to move forward. But that, again, that's one that if we would do it, we would do that.
Okay, so there's not enough time to go into everything, though. I love Ghostbusters. I love so much of your work. But talk to me. You did mention your next film, which is coming pretty soon. Yeah. And this has quite a following. I know the books are very popular. You just showed us some footage for the first time at CinemaCon in Vegas that went over very well. Talk to me about the approach to this one compared to, I mean, it shares some thriller sensibilities, I would imagine, but fair to say less humor than the Simple Favor films.
Yeah. I mean, I really love the book. I don't know how many people here have read the book. It's a really good book. Yeah, and it's got great twists in the characters. And I'm always going to be very religious about whatever the source material is, and. So I mean, The Housemaid is definitely, sometimes it's so extreme, you'll just kind of laugh just because you're like, oh my God. But
we just saw another Simple Favor, and you're saying that's extreme?
Exactly. Different kind of extreme.
Okay. Just a second.
No, but the fun for me, look, my confession is I don't watch a lot of comedies. All I watch is like thrillers and horror movies and stuff. I love thrillers because to me, they're very, comedy and horror and thrillers and all that stuff, they're so close together because a laugh is the same emotion as a scream or a jump.
Right.
And if people you shock people and they scream, they'll almost always laugh after they scream.
Right.
And the moment that kind of solidified it for me was when we were doing the movie The Heat and shooting the scene. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a scene where the bad guy stabs Sandra Bullock in the leg with his knife and leaves it there. And so Melissa pulls it out, and then they realize they have, for their plan to work, she still has to have the knife back in her leg. And so we got this sequence where she's trying to stab Sandra with his knife, and the audience is they're screaming and laughing at the same time. And I was like, ooh, I like how these two things go together. And these days, most comedies you are watching now are horror movies. Right. I mean, Megan is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. I cannot wait for the sequel this year. But it's exciting. It's about eliciting a gut, a primal emotion out of an audience. That's when you really feel like you've hit a home run.
I'm excited about the trio of actors you've never worked with in the new film. I mean, there's a lot of for stuff like that. There's a lot of fan casting out there. Do you even pay attention to that?
No, you'll go crazy if you
really.
Do that. Yeah.
That's again just trusting instincts. And we were talking before backstage, Sydney Sweeney. I just love what she's doing with her career. She's so great. What surprised or excited you about working with this trio of actors? Can you hint a little bit?
I mean, I was a huge fan of Sydney's. Did you ever see the movie Reality that she did? Unbelievable. And I was just like, I have to work with her. Amanda Seyfried, I had met years before. We had drinks together just to kind of have a general meeting, and we really hit it off. And I was just like, I have to work with her. And then Blake had just worked with Brandon on It Ends With Us, and she was still in the middle of shooting and all that stuff when we were doing Simple Favor. They were doing reshoots. And she was like, I'm working with this guy, and he's so amazing. Brandon, you got to meet Brandon. I was like, all right. Like, and then so finally we were casting this. I was like, all right, I'll have lunch with Brandon. He walks in. Within 30 seconds, I'm like jelly. Like, oh, okay, you're like the most charismatic, guy you've ever met in your life, and so talented. So there's a thrill of working with people you worked with before because how to play with what they do, but there's a real thrill also about working with somebody new for the first time, especially when they're delightful. I mean, this cast, this sounds like Hollywood BS, but it's not. This cast was delightful to work with. We had a really short schedule. We had a 34-day schedule, over 200 scenes in the movie. Wow. Yeah, and I was just like, this is gonna be tough. They're like, cool, we're in, and they were just, they just nailed it every time and gave me options and different things. I can't wait for you to see it. It's going to be theatrical. It's going to be on the big screen.
Nice. And on the bucket list again, you've dabbled in a lot of different genres. You've talked about wanting to do a musical. I remember there was kind of like a big horror project that you were working on with Universal for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So what's top of the list? It seems like musical keeps coming up for you.
Yeah, but I'd love to do a musical, but I don't want to do a bad musical.
Right.
So it's about finding the right material. I'd love to do an original musical, but I want it to be kind of big, but exciting. I like John Carney's so great at doing those small musicals, like Once and those, and his new movie coming out, which looks fantastic. But I kind of want to do something more like a Bollywood-esque, old MGM type thing. But we'll see. I mean, I'm dying to do a Western. I'm dying to do a big sci-fi thing, but I love doing thrillers. I'd like to do a few more thrillers. But yeah, I'm definitely trying to check off every genre I can.
What do we call the third Simple Favor movie? You've kind of, it's a challenging
An even simpler favor, exactly. The simplest favor.
The simplest favor yet. Can you imagine?
Exactly.
Yeah, and where do you set it? Have you thought about seriously what you might do with these characters?
I got a few ideas. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, we're going to end with this. It's traditional Happy Second Fuse to ask folks the profoundly random questionnaire. So, Paul, are you ready?
I'm afraid, but yes.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
Okay.
It can't be worse than showing you old clips of your,
that
illustrious
is true.
acting career.
You pulled the Band-Aid off, basically.
Dogs or cats, Paul?
Cats.
Wow.
I love dogs. Don't get me wrong.
Team
but
cat. Okay.
All I do is watch cat videos. That's all I do online. I do.
Really?
Yes.
What do you collect?
I collect walking sticks and cowboy boots.
That is a new. The walking stick is a new answer to the Happy Second Fuse questionnaire.
Exactly. Not a cane, a walking stick.
Do you have a favorite walking stick?
I do. It's actually in both movies. Both the Simple Favors, it's that skull one. It's in the first one. You actually see it on camera. This one, she's got it when they're mixing the martinis.
Amazing. Yeah. Favorite video game of all time?
I don't really play video games, but it would be Tetris if I had to pick.
Okay.
Yeah, let's old school.
Yeah. What's the wallpaper on your phone?
My wife. Of course. Very cute picture, too. We've been married 30 years, so there you go.
Nice. Congratulations. Are you ever mistaken for anybody? Another filmmaker, another actor? Has it happened?
Yes, two. I used to get mistaken for Andy Dick all the time. Yeah, you remember? And Scott Thompson from Kids in the Hall. So often I get people going, hey, and it's always, when you're kind of in this business, so people go like, oh my God, I love your work. Oh, thanks so much. When you did that one character, oh God, they think I'm Scott Thompson. God damn it.
When you were acting more, what was the worst note a director ever gave you? Does anything stick out in your mind?
It's the note I still give to actors, and then I always go like, oh shit, I said it. Just have fun with it. Just have fun with it.
What does that mean?
It's the worst thing you can say to an actor, and yet somehow in the moment it feels like, oh, I don't have to like. To me, it makes sense, but as an actor, it goes like, okay, great, thanks. Can you give me a line reading?
Yeah. Do you ever give a line reading?
No. Well, I used to want to do. I used to like try to get them to do it, and the cool actors go like, well, just give me a line reading. I don't care. And the minute I would do it, it would sound so terrible. I'd go like, just do what you're doing. Just do your thing. You're better.
What does bother you on set? Because you're in my history with you, you're one of the nicest guys out there. It seems like you have a very even keel personality. Do you ever have a meltdown making a film? Like what?
No, you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we all know the stories. The director's screaming and yelling. When I was an actor, I'm so sensitive, just in general. I'm a sensitive guy. I don't like conflict. And like, I would try when I was an actor, like, oh, I'm not going to improvise a line. And like, if a director be like, no, what are you doing? Like, they'd slap you down. I would just freeze up. And then all my extra skills would just go away. And I was like, just tell me what to do. And you could come kind of like a robot. And so for me, I don't want any of that stress. We have a thing, like is there any crew member that we have that has a blow up, it's like, you're gone. Like, do not bring drama to my set.
Yeah, life is too short. Okay, in the spirit of Happy Second Fuse, who's an actor who always makes you happy, you see them on screen, you're in a better mood immediately.
Will Arnett. I had so much fun working with Will on Arrested Development, and he was the one they had to move my monitors so far away from the set because I would just start laughing anything he did. Yeah, because it's so serious. Everything's so serious. Oh, he kills me.
A movie that makes you sad, brings you to tears.
Well, I mean, sad is not the right word, but always cry at It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah,
I will always cry at that. That's my favorite movie of all time because whether it's the greatest movie of all time, it is a movie that does everything a movie is supposed to do. Makes you laugh, makes you cry, makes you happy, makes you sad, all that stuff. And I just think it's masterful.
A food that makes you confused. You don't get it.
Confused. Oh, my goodness. Well, mayonnaise, because I don't know why people like it.
I'm with you. I hate it.
I don't know. There's two things that make me want to gag, and one is mayonnaise and one is pickled beets for some reason.
I'm with you, Paul. I hate beets. Look at this.
Well, I had a bad experience when I was a kid because my father loved beets and he loved borscht. But my
Right.
mom used to make this really great fruit punch. You see where this is going. And we had this pitcher, this plastic pitcher you could kind of see through. And one day I was like, oh my God, Mom made fruit punch. Poured a jig thing, goes, and it was beet borscht. And like, oh,
We can't end on that. Here's one.
can't- yeah, please.
Here's one question I actually
something nice.
I wanted to ask about the film. How the hell do you close down the Trevi Fountain? How do you have it all to yourself?
oh man. Don't think it wasn't an ordeal.
Is that for real? Like, there's no digital trickery?
No, that is the real deal. Let me just tell you.
Yeah.
My dream was I wanted, because I love Fellini, and we shot part of this movie at Cinecittà, which, if you know, Fellini. But I got it in my head, I'm going to have Blake Lively in the Trevi Fountain, just like Anita Ekberg. And I told our Italian liaisons, and they're like, you cannot. And so I know, but I want it, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm talking to other Italians who go like, there's a term, I forget the word. There's some word that's derogatory in Italian that means person who follows the rules. So they're like, you just go and do it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. And so all these rumors are going around. We get there to shoot. The police are there. Basically, if she set one toe into that water, they were going to leap on us. I was going to be banned from Italy for the rest of my life. So like, all right, you'll just sit on the edge.
Close enough. Close to being a rule breaker. Congratulations, man. The film is fantastic. It's one of the most entertaining films I've seen in quite a while. You make movies for audiences, as I said. This audience is very lucky. You guys are truly one of the first audiences to see us, so please spread the good word. This is going to be on Prime May 1st.
May 1st.
May 1st. Spread the good word. And before we end, I just want to thank Miami and Miami Film Festival, Lauren, for being such a great host. Amazing. It's been such an honor to bring Happy, Sad, Confused here, and with no less than the great Paul Feig, award winner Paul Feig. Give it up one more time, please, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
You guys are the greatest. Thank you. We appreciate it.